So if you're a single mom or dad in Atlanta and you've been thinking, I don't know how I'm going to buy a house, but I am, this video is for you. I've helped people just like you get into homes with lower down payments, lower interest rates, and even mortgage insurance. And I just want to be honest with you guys, it's not a dream, it's a strategy. And it can all be achievable if you trust the right person, if you trust yourself first, and if you trust God. So let me speak from a little bit of experience, you guys. I just want to give you a little preface into how I know and nurture my clients, and I know what it takes to actually go through with it and make a deal happen. So I'm a parent myself. I live in Atlanta. I'm from Atlanta, and I know the ins and outs of the different areas that work for having kids and what don't and what does not. I know what it feels like to hold the weight of having kids in this economy. So I'm not telling you that it's just going to be rainbows and butterflies. What I'm telling you that is the strategy that you use in order to make sure that this is an exact deal that happens for you and your family. It needs to be strategized. It needs to be on paper. And so there are things that you need to put in place now to make sure that that is a attainable goal for your family and for yourself. So I know people talk about this all the time, like, okay, if you're going to buy a house, you need perfect credit, you need 20% down, you need to have all these bank statements, all these ducks in a row, but there are ways around it. And so I love a lender that it can actually do these things for my clients, that can give them the things that they're missing. And so at this time, I know for a fact that working with a mortgage company that is actually going to give you all of the details of what you need to actually assemble your home ownership journey, and to actually make sure that you're partnering with someone who's going to give you those details. And so not only do I have access to this, but I also have access for my clients. And my clientele understands the essentials of elevating and using your mortgage in order to help you to build wealth. So I don't want to talk about this without an exclusivity of being able to work with my clients one-on-one. But there are some things that people around the nation need to know how to make sure that they're maintaining themselves financially in order to put themselves in a predicament where their financial picture is better and it is warranted for home ownership. So let me break down a couple benefits. Number one is going to be lower down payment. When you're a first-time home buyer, and a lot of people know this already, but that percentage rate drops from 20%, from even 15 down to 3. And there is also down payment assistance on top of that. So think about the time frame that you're in right now, where you have down payment assistance, where you also have mortgage assistance at a wholesale rate. And this is a lot different than just your regular Rocket Mortgage or something you can get a pre-approved for on your Credit Karma just because they said that you could. These are the strategies that need to be in place in order for going forward. Number two, the next benefit is going to be a reduced mortgage insurance. And so this insurance is going to cover your mortgage throughout the eternity of your loan. So with that comes with an additional charge. It comes with an additional price tag. And so when you have the opportunity to have that reduced, it can significantly help your buying power. Not only are you going to be able to make sure that you get qualified for a bigger loan for your family, but your down payment goes down. Because think about it, you're at a 3% rate of a loan that has been enlarged because you have a lower monthly insurance. So think about that quote and think about how it can look different from getting at other lenders who are just going to give you what they want in return of an interest rate versus actually going wholesale. And so this is a game changer for a lot of my clients, and they've seen the difference time and time again, regardless of their financial profile. But let me tell you about the third benefit, and this one should be really the most important. When you're working with a wholesale lender, that does not mean that you are going and walking into a bank and paying retail. Understand the difference between a retail and a wholesale mortgage. These two are going to be the epitome of what's going to give you the exact amount that you need to qualify to be able to have a home that you can own. So remind yourself of how the professionals are using mortgages and apply that to your own family benefit. So here's what I recommend before we get started. There are things that you actually need to put in place to give yourself the momentum to get started and to actually have a plan set. Number one is that you definitely need to make sure that you have the proof of income. Proving that you can actually afford your mortgage is a non-negotiable. They want to see if you can actually afford it. You can't go get an apartment without proof that you can pay for your rent. The same thing qualifies for your mortgage. And I'm not going to tell you that there aren't other ways around that, because there are, but you have to make sure that you're thinking about your picture for yourself. If you're running a business, if you are self-employed, if you are a W-2, if you're a contractor, all of those are going to be depictions into your financial picture that you need to put on the table and put a magnifying glass to. You need to know what your monthly budget is. When you're writing out your monthly budget and you're giving yourself the rough idea, it's very possible for you to look over things and other expenses that you're paying. So the first things first is I would always say, take a look at your expenses, all of them. Pull your credit cards over the last month, 6 months. Look at where your money is going, where you're spending it, and where it's coming from, and how consistent it is. This is going to make sure that you give yourself the opportunity to be a justifiable buyer in this economy, especially when it comes to mortgage insurance or even just mortgage in general. Let me tell you that one of those things, the hardest conversations that I can have with my clients is making sure that they have these things intact. However, it can be a stressor, and I know from firsthand experience, I've worked with clients all the time. One of the things that I love to promote is the fact that when you're working with the wholesale mortgage company, like the one that I love to work with, that you don't have to do the digging. You can give them your information and they can pull it themselves. But it is a nice idea to be organized, of course. But at the same time, you don't have to have your ducks in a row. You don't have to have every problem solved before you can get in front of somebody who can actually help you get a mortgage. And so that takes honest conversation with yourself to get prepared. And it also takes honest conversation with whoever you are working with when it comes to getting your mortgage. Not only this, but I want to tell you that when you're working with somebody and you're working with a realtor, you need to have a vision of what you want. Don't shoot the messenger, but I'm going to tell you now that unreliable circumstances and things that are just out of this world for your first time home, those are just going to be setbacks for you if you're thinking like that. So you need to make sure that you are not putting yourself in a position to where you're doing things out of reach. Be humble in this moment and understand that this is your first time. There are always going to be opportunities to expound on what you really want. And this is not a reflection of who you are. This is just a reflection of who you are right now. So you can become more by taking this first step into home ownership. But the thing does not have to actually revolve around your dream home. Just please remember that there's a time and a place for it all. So that kind of reminder is just to tell you guys like how much you do not need perfection at this time. You just need to go and you just need to get your first deal, your first home. So I love to make sure that when your first time buying a house is actually going to be fun for you. And people don't really say the F word a lot when it comes to professional situations, but it can always be fun, let me tell you now. But the one thing that I want to tell you guys is that without the fun is that you need to have a strategy, and that strategy, it just comes with working in real estate for sure. So you're gonna need a realtor, of course. You're gonna need somebody who actually can educate you on how to do it, what strategies you need to do, what you need to give yourself, the time frame that you have. All of those above are gonna be strategic things that a realtor can bring into your deal. So let me tell you what you're really gonna need in order to make sure that your documents are in a row and to make sure that you're giving yourself the opportunity to fast forward your deal. So your first income documents, these are things that your lender is going to use to stabilize your profile. You're going to need those last 2 pay stubs. You're going to need the bank statements that show the pay stubs, and then the last 2 years of the W-2s. These are for my 1099 or my self-employed clients, and then the last 2 years of the tax returns, especially for self-employed or contractors, whoever you are, and then proof of additional income. This can either be the child support or the alimony, or even just a side hustle, whatever you guys have going on. These are things that need to be in place at least, just so that way you can look good on paper. Now, when it comes to credit readiness, I know that there can be a tick for tack. A lot of lenders, they prefer you to have the best credit, and I will always tell my clients that a 620 score is a really good starting point. And I say starting point for a reason. Because if you don't have a certain score, you can pay a lot more actually in the mortgage rates that you have. And I say that to say is that if you don't want to go up and pay a whole bunch of money down, then that credit score is going to need to be a little bit more favorable to make sure that you're actually going to be a trustworthy borrower. And I'm telling you guys from experience that I've worked with people who have less than a 630 credit score or 620, and they were having to come out of pocket a lot more than someone who did not. So if you're going to take anything from this video, I would definitely say that you need to prepare. And one of those preparation needs is clearing up those things on your credit report that are not going to be favorable for you long term. Now, there are ways you can pull your free credit report, and I can drop a link in the description. But I want to tell you now that even if you were to look at your credit report, you need to know what to pull off of there or what to fix. And so late payments, that's not going to look good at all because you're applying for a loan. Think about it. If you want to make sure that you're getting the right rates and the right actual mortgage, then you don't want to have late payments. You don't want to have high credit usage. You don't want to have collections on your credit report. And these are things that are going to inhibit you from looking like you're the most viable buyer. And so I can tell you more about credit readiness in one of my other videos, but trust that you can have something in repair mode. Now, working in Atlanta, there are so many benefits to working in a place where they have all types of actual home ownership programs that can actually benefit the buyer. And so one of these is going to be Invest Atlanta. And this is one that I've seen a lot of people get homes with, even if they don't even have a completely stable job. One of my friends, she had an Invest Atlanta loan because of the fact that she was able to get qualified based off of her experience from getting out of college. This was before she even had gotten a corporate job, before she had even started working and earning 2 years worth of income or tax return statements. And so these are also perks that you can look into or have your realtor look into for you that can give you an upper hand into making sure that this dream becomes a reality. And there's also other housing funds that Atlanta supports. And so these housing funds are going to be able to give you the opportunity to fund the fact that you have a down payment and that you may need assistance. And they can give you a roadmap into how you need to actually structure your finances to get a great deal in the home that you actually want. And so I love to tell my clients all the time of the specific perks that come with actually having a reduced rate mortgage or even just a wholesale mortgage in general. And so those are going to entitle you to lower monthly costs, even if you are going through the housing authorities, even if you are getting some help. And so these are all things that are necessary to look at to see if you have these resources in your back pocket so that way you can understand how to move forward and to give yourself the opportunity that a lot of people don't usually have. And that is actually having support and references. So I'm just going to tell you now that I can help you qualify these things. I can help you come up with a package deal to make it look and also elevate your experience when working and buying your first home, especially as a single parent. These are actually things that you have to focus on making sure that you know how to do, that you know how to trust someone who can give you this reality, that somebody is knowledgeable enough to make sure that you are prepared. So make sure that you're doing your due diligence when choosing a realtor, number one. And make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, that you're not just doing it because you know someone or you've known somebody else that referred you out. Do it for the reasons that you know that they're going to actually package your deal, package your profile to make sure that you are coming out with the better end of the stick and you're not getting trumped by these mega companies that are just trying to collect on your interest rate. You don't want that hassle. You want to make sure that you're doing it smart and that you're moving with intentionality. Now, I can keep boring you with employment verification and bank statement requirements, but I'm really just going to tell you that it really comes down to where you're picking your mortgage and who are you choosing to actually find the home for you. And so these two things are going to be a really big deal into moving forward, into giving yourself the audacity to make sure that you're structuring a deal that is actually stabilized of strategy. And what's going to actually come next from that is going to be your buying budget. So I can tell you about what you're going to need to qualify, but really what matters is going to be that budget, the buying power that you actually possess. So I love to tell my clients all the time to know your monthly range. Know the range that you can go down at your lowest and up to at your highest. Though that range needs to be spot on to what you're paying outside of your mortgage and what you are approved for when you actually do get pre-approved. So these quotes that you're getting for your pre-approval, they need to include some important things, and these are all non-negotiables and most likely going to be recommended from your mortgage company. These are also important because they're going to attest to how your monthly range is going to cost you. So you want to be comfortable in that, and looking at this firsthand is going to also make sure that you are prepared to pay them. Next comes your property taxes. And these are just property taxes that you have to pay in the state where you're living. And, they're going to come as a part of your mortgage. And then also tacking on that home insurance. Most of these are also always going to come with that additional charge of a home insurance. So make sure that you're noticing these things and you're putting them into your budget and you're making space for them to not make you house poor, as a lot of people may call it, but to make sure that you're getting yourself in a predicament of actual stability and growth, not just chasing the dream just so you can have a house. You need to make sure that you are stable in your mortgage, that you're not just doing this out of the shiny picture that it comes with home ownership. It is actually an investment and a legacy building tactic. You can't go into this blindsided with your eyes closed and hope for the best always. No, you need to be prepared, you need to be structured, and you need to have a strategy. So I want you to know this, and this is some mindset prep that I just want to give you guys before I go. And this here is going to tell you exactly how you don't have to be perfect. And being that somebody who overlooks a lot of things in the deal, it is hard to try to make sure that you're doing everything perfectly. You cannot do it because you're not perfect. But there are ways that you can. So I'm going to leave you guys with this. And this is some mindset prep before we go. And I just want to tell you now that this is totally possible. You can definitely do this. These are things that have been done for years. So don't be so hard on yourself. Don't beat yourself up about not knowing. There are people that you can talk to that can give you the benefit of the doubt when it comes to just answering your questions. So if you want somebody who actually cares about it and making sure that you are seen and heard, you can definitely talk to me. I'm super open. I love to help, and I want to give you guys every opportunity that any other of my clients have. And then you want to make sure that you have the strategy. I'm going to stress the strategy word because I'm telling you now, as today, as you're hearing this message, whoever you are, if you do not have a strategy in how you're going to actually buy that house as a single parent, even if you are looking into other avenues of parenting, these are things that you need to know and be strategic about in the first place from day one. And without that strategy, there's just not going to have that same ordeal to the deal when it comes to buying a house. You have to make sure that that strategy is in order. And I'm going to leave you guys with this as well. Looking at this as an investment, you want to make sure that you're not just doing it out of emotions. Don't participate in things that are going to just give you a right now win. You want generational win. You want to actually have your assets working for you and being the epitome of where you start your growth. And it starts with home ownership. I'm going to tell everyone that until I'm blue in the face. So I can tell you now that it is possible and it is actually warranted. So make sure you're doing your research. Make sure you actually care about your deal and that you're not just getting screwed over, and that you can actually get it done non-traditional ways, and that is actually going to serve you a bigger purpose. So that's it for today's video. Please comment and like and share this video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I want to make sure that I'm here giving you some tips that a lot of people aren't telling you, but to make sure that you're actually prepared and have strategy. So until next time, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you guys later.